Welcome to the Elevate Your Equity podcast, where we, as married busy professionals, leverage real estate investing to unlock the 3+1 degrees of freedom: health, location, time, and financial.
Today, I'm joined by Mr. Levi Brackman. How you doing, Levi?
I'm doing well. How you doing, Derek?
Good, man. Good to see you. Levi is the CEO and founder of Invone.com, a crowdfunding fractional real estate marketplace where everyday investors and real estate owners can transact. Levi has been investing in real estate for 17 years now and basically wants everyone to be able to take part in the opportunities that come along with investing and owning real estate if they want to. And so, Levi, it's awesome to have you on the show. We are fellow GoBundance brothers. And I think what we want to talk about today is crowdfunding and how this all works and this amazing platform that you've built for everyone to be able to do that. But before we get started there, why don't you tell us a little bit about how you first found your spark in real estate investing or investing in general?
It's actually interesting. I never saw myself as a real estate investor. As a matter of fact, I even today say to myself, I'm not a real estate guy. I'm just a guy who does real estate. And I think there's kind of a difference there, right? I don't see like that as my identity. I think I always knew that real estate was a good investment. And that was something which I should get into, and I should own my own home and maybe a couple of homes. And that was really kind of where I was and what I thought about. And mostly, though, I've been investing up until very recently, where I've moved much more heavily into real estate. Mostly I was investing in the stock market. And that wasn't like huge investments, right? I was a nonprofit guy. I don't come from wealth. So I'm not a person who came from means and somehow made millions and was an investor. I don't have that kind of story. But it's always been very, very clear to me that it's important to have part of what you're doing, investing and managing your money and allowing your money to grow for you. So I've been doing that for a while. And, I think like the biggest predictor of net worth is age. So if you're doing it right, as you get older, you'll find yourself having some means. I'm not saying that I'm super, super wealthy, but I'm fortunate to be in a position where, I'm able to do some of these other kinds of things.
Great. That's great. And when you got started out early, was a specific point in time in which you realized that you had to start getting your money to work for you? Maybe your parents taught you this, or maybe there was something about your upbringing that said, you know what, when I grow up, I want to make sure that I manage money well. Or is this more of like kind of a gradual thing that worked for you?
I'll tell you a little bit of my background of why I care about like the little guy, everyone being involved with this. And that is because I grew up in a family where I was one of 9. And my father was a scientist. My mother was a teacher. And my father, he had a job for a big chemical company. He was a chemist, PhD in chemistry. And we never had much money around. As a matter of fact, I like to tell the story that, and this is just a fact, that, in our house, we had carpet and the carpet ended up being threadbare. And the solution to the threadbare carpet was not buying new carpet. It was a rug. And when we wanted to, I remember my parents, we were a bunch of 7 of us boys, and we were kind of a rambunctious lot. And we would jump on the couches, and we ruined those couches, and we needed new couches.
I bet.
But the way we got new couches was not going out and buying new couches, but rather a friend moved to Australia, and my father paid them £100 or whatever for their couches. This was in North London. And we had those couches, which were much nicer than our couches, but we're still 15 years old. My father never had a car which was less than 18 years old. He really never had much money. I remember actually getting a view on my father's bank statements, and he was always overdraft. So, in England, you have this thing where you can take out an overdraft. He was always in overdraft. So he never really had much money around. We never had, the refrain I heard most often growing up was, we can't afford it. There were a few things which I said to myself growing up. And one of them was that I never really want to be in this situation where I have to tell my kids I can't afford it the whole time. But the other thing which I told myself was that there's nothing I won't do in order to be able to provide for my family properly. I will schlep boxes, whatever it needs, whatever it takes. My number one responsibility is to make sure that I'm actually able to provide for my family. That doesn't mean I need to be very wealthy, but it means that, my kids need to feel that they can have what they need. And so one thing which I saw with my father was that it wasn't because he wasn't smart. My father was a very smart guy. He had a PhD, for God's sake, right? My mother was a teacher, but they never understood money, A, and B, they never had access to the kind of opportunities wealthy people had access to. So I remember when in England, they did privatizations of big public companies. And public companies back then was owned by the government. So you had British Telecom, British Gas, British Petroleum, which is now BP, British Airways. These were all government-owned companies. And Maggie Thatcher back in the 80s, she privatized them, which means she floated them on the stock market. And because they were owned by the government, you were able to subscribe prior to IPO day to some stocks. And, since there were 11 of us in the house, my father, he subscribed for everyone. And we all got some stock, and he sold on IPO day and made a little bit of a profit. And he did that for every single one of these companies. So whenever he had access to kind of these deals, he understood what to do and how to do it and to go after it. But access was far and few between. He just didn't have access to deals which he could put his money to work for him. So the best he could do was, if he had money, was to put it in the bank. But mostly the bank was taking money from him in overdraft fees. So, it just, as I look back at it, I think to myself, if someone like my father had access to private real estate deals, would he not have taken advantage of them? He definitely would have. But there was no access back then. Today, we have the regulatory framework to allow anyone to invest in cash flowing assets like real estate and to get in on all kinds of different private investments because of the Jobs Act and crowdfunding regulations. And therefore, all he needs to do, I feel, is to create the platform, bring the deals onto the platform, and let everyone know that they can access it, those who want to. And, you create an ability for just the average person like my father to be able to invest. So when I think about who am I building this for, who I built this for, I think about people like my father. And so that's really how that became. Real estate is another part of the story.
This is a fantastic story about foundations. And I always love to ask questions that drive into that, because we start figuring out where this passion comes from and where the motivation comes from to get into these types of things. So let's talk a little bit about crowdfunding right now. I do want to talk about real estate. I also want to talk about your specific platform as well and how it can help people, what it is. But let's talk about crowdfunding in general first. And let's talk about how it's different than syndicating funds, for instance, or if it is different than syndicating funds with these different Reg Ds, however that all works. I'd love to hear your take on what crowdfunding is for these privatized investment offerings.
And so they're all part of the same family, if you like, of regulations. Fundamentally, if you are trying to buy a security, that security needs to be registered with the Securities and Exchange Commission. That's why we have the SEC. It's so that, securities can be registered. And what is a security? Maybe we should take a step back and what is a security? Because there's a lot of confusion about what a security is. And the Supreme Court, based on the Howey's test, came up with the definition of a security. And it's really very simple. It's anything that you purchase, which is part of a common enterprise, which you expect the profits to be as a result of the efforts of other people. That's considered the security. So if you're purchasing common enterprise, whatever the enterprise is, doesn't matter what it is, it's something which you're purchasing, which is you're not going and working in that enterprise, but you expect someone else to work in it, and you should just get the profits. That thing that you purchase is called a security. Now, for real estate, that's really, really simple to understand. If you've got an LP position, so if you've got you're buying membership units in an LLC, but you're not working on the LLC, you're not collecting rent, you're not going in there and fixing up the walls or painting it or whatever else, then you are a silent partner. You are buying a security. Technically speaking, it needs to be registered with the Securities and Exchange Commission, unless there are some exceptions that you're using. And when you say Reg D or 506C, 506B, Reg CF, Reg A, what you're really doing is you're referring to chapter and verse in a law which explains what these exceptions are. Now, as long as you follow those exceptions, you might not have to either register with the Securities and Exchange Commission, or the registration and the information you're giving this to the Securities and Exchange Commission can be much less than you would if you're doing a proper public offering. Mm-hmm. So really, that's really what to understand. So Reg D is kind of part of crowdfunding. It allows, in other words, crowdfunding allows in the sense that it allows people to go ahead and offer a security to friends or to people that they know from other people. So in that sense, it is kind of like crowdfunding. But neither of those, Reg D, neither 506C or 506B, allow you to just offer them to the public as a whole. For that, you need Reg CF or Reg A.
Yeah, that's awesome. So let's talk a little bit more. Thank you for explaining all of the legalese there behind that. Let's talk about what investing in a crowdfunding platform looks like, or how it's different compared to a regular syndicated fund that most people understand as either accredited, sophisticated investors. I want to make that distinction right now clear, and then we can talk about your company and what you can help with as well.
So now that we understand what a security is and we understand the exceptions which are used, we can dive into the different exceptions. So syndications typically use the exception of 506C or 506B. So let's talk about 506C for a minute. What that means is you can create your own website. You can actually put the information all about the offering on the website, but the only people who are allowed to actually invest in that offering, and you could also do Google ads, you can put it on Facebook ads, you can do whatever you want, but the only people, once the people come to invest, you have to have a third party verifying that that person is accredited. And what accredited means is that they either have $1 million worth of net worth outside of their own personal residence, or they're earning $200,000 a year as an individual or $300,000 as a couple. If they can verify that with a third-party verification company, then they can invest in a 506C offering. And if you are a person who's doing a 506C and you're accepting money from people who are non-accredited, that is against the law. Okay. 506B, what that means is that you can offer it to accredited investors and to non-accredited investors, 35 sophisticated non-accredited investors. And you can ask a lawyer what that means. I'm not a lawyer. This is me just sharing my information. None of this should be taken as legal advice.
Agreed.
So that 506B, you cannot advertise anywhere. All the people who invest in it have to be people who either know you, somehow came across you and approached you and said, can I invest in this? But you're not allowed to do any kind of advertising. As long as you keep to those laws, you can then sell securities to people, and you're allowed to have up to 35 sophisticated non-accredited investors in your deal. Now, you don't need any portal, you don't need any platform. You can all do 506C and 506B all on your own private websites, your own private, whatever, Then you have Reg CF. What Reg CF says is that you can actually advertise. There's certain things you can't advertise, right? But you can advertise, in general, you can advertise that you're doing an offering, but it has to be through either a funding portal or a broker dealer. Now, what the funding portal then has the role of doing is they'll host your offering, and they'll also do background check on the issuer or the sponsor. They'll do bad actor checks. They'll make sure that the offering is not any kind of fraud. And then for the public can feel more confident that this is a good offering, and then anyone can invest in it. Unlimited amount of non-accredited and accredited investors can invest in it using Reg CF. The underlying structure, where basically the investors are LPs and the sponsor or the offerer, person who's offering it, is the GP, is the same, whether it's 506C, 506B, or Reg CF. Key difference is how many people can invest in it and the type of people that can invest in it, and whether it needs to be done through a portal, which is portal registered by the SEC and a member of FINRA, or not.
I love it. I guess when someone is interested or looking at a crowdfunding, like you said that you're looking for something that the masses can essentially invest in, someone that's a lot like your father or other people who are maybe in that similar situation. What does it look like, the experience for someone, and who can invest, and how much do you need to invest in a crowdfunded type of investment offering?
Anyone can invest. Now, there are certain limits about how much you can invest in a given year based on your net worth and your income. And that's all self-reported. So, no one's going to audit you to make sure you haven't gone over your limits, but there are certain limits of how much you can invest based on your net worth. And we actually ask a question, how much have you invested this year in crowdfunding? So that's the first thing. The second thing about it is that the minimum, we want it to be as minimum as possible. So it also depends on the issuer. So we as a platform, we would like the issuers to set it as low as possible. But right now, the minimum on our marketplace for the deal which we have out currently is $1,000, but that could drop to $500. That really, we would like it to be a situation where anyone can invest and anyone can afford to invest in it. So, and how does it look like? Well, you show up and the offerings are right there. You go shop invone.com and the offerings are on the front page. You click on it, put the amount of money you want to invest, and it'll take you through to a process to invest on the platform.
That's awesome. And these offerings that are offered on the portal are vetted. And for someone who wants to invest in this platform, what's to keep them from, granted that they're not a bad actor, right? There's this background checks in place, but what's to keep an operator to go on the platform and say, yeah, I'm going to do a 25% IRR and start attracting all of this money into their deal, and then they end up not performing, or something happens where they're not reputable? How do you guys prevent against that, even though they may be legal and they're not a bad actor, but they're just not they're new to the space, or they're operators that maybe are looking to kind of like grind their teeth or cut their teeth on some of these deals? How do you get around that issue at the beginning?
Part of our mission is to allow those people in the beginning to also raise money. Now, of course, those people, they have their profile up there. People will know that these are newbies, and maybe those newbies are going to have to offer a better deal to investors because it's more risky. But I like everyone to be able to raise money on the marketplace, because, why should it only be that people, everyone's got to start somewhere, right? And everyone's got to find people to invest, somebody to invest in them, right? Yes, earlier people are more risky, but they need also a chance. So if you're a person who wants to start off in real estate and you want to raise money, then, we'll look at you and we'll put up your deal. We'll make sure that you know what you're doing somewhat. We'll look at all your documents to make sure that there's actual real estate there and you're actually going to buy it and you know what you're doing. But it's not super, super important to us that the person has 50 years of experience. Currently the one we have up, the guy's, he's got $40 million of assets under management. So he's a pretty sophisticated guy. So we'll have plenty of those as well. But this is the goal of our marketplace, is really to be a great equalizer, where anyone who wants to get into real estate as far as being a sponsor or an owner should see Invone as a place where they can use to be able to raise money. And we won't judge them because they're first time at it.
I think that's really, really cool. And I guess as far as diversification goes for risk management, maybe that's how this makes sense, right? For some of these investors who are looking to get involved in real estate somehow with these newer operators or with these experienced operators, is you get to kind of try a whole bunch of different things out. So if you had $10,000 to invest, instead of sticking it in with one operator potentially, because sometimes, the minimums are anywhere between 30 and 50,000, right?
Yep.
If you have $10,000, man, imagine the diversification of investment you could do in your platform. And that is one way of spreading out the risk. So that's really cool.
There's actually, people will come up with all different kinds of strategies associated with that, because you'll also have different types of real estate assets there. You'll have public storage, you'll have mobile home parks, you'll have, multifamily, you'll have single family, etc.
That's great. That's great. Now, can you tell me what are some common misconceptions in crowdfunded real estate, if you've heard any over the years?
I think one of the big common misconceptions is that they're investing with us on Invone. You're not. You're investing with the sponsor, right? We're just a facilitator. So that's a big misconception. So sponsors will come to us and say, oh, well, what rates do you offer? I don't offer any rates, right? Because you offer the rates or the terms, right? And if you offer rates with terms that aren't that great, then investors probably won't invest. But so you're the one who offers the rate, the terms, you're the one who offers all those other things. We're just facilitating it. And when the person invests, again, they're not investing in us, they're investing in the sponsor.
Got it. That's perfect. That's awesome. That makes a lot of sense too. And then how does your platform get paid? Because I'm sure a lot of people are out there wondering, well, geez, that's all well and good, but how are you guys making money and staying in business? Like nothing is for free in this world.
Yeah, well, right now we're still building, so we're not getting paid that much, to be honest, but we will. It's fees, basically. It's fees. There's money. It costs money to invest on the way in. So there's a commission which you pay on the way in. And then there's cost of capital for the sponsor on the way out.
Got it. Excellent. Now, let me ask one question about the portal, and then we can kind of go back to talking about real estate investing in general for you. But my main question is, what does the relationship look like between several investors, few operators, and how do you guys manage that relationship? Like, are you involved on an ongoing basis, or do you make the connection and say, here's a match, go for it, and then on the next deal, we'll match you up again and again? You're not really getting involved on the day-to-day things or helping. Like, do you do tax returns? I'm just curious to see how you guys help out the investors.
Yeah. So post-closing, once it's closed, they're your investors, not our investors. So what we do is we partner with people like some of the big names out there, investment management companies, where if you raise through us, you'll get a better deal on their platform to manage your investors. But we don't do the investment management. We're on the front end of doing the fundraising management. And then once the fundraise is done and it's closed, then there's the investment management. That there are other companies which do that pretty well. We all know their names. Don't need to give them free advertising necessarily here, but there's some which we have relationships with, and you'll get a better deal if you do a deal with us. That's on that part of it. But part of the value proposition, if you're doing a 506B, a 506C, you're going to have to go to your lawyer and get all the legal documents put together, and it will cost you $10,000, $15,000. We offer templates for all the legal documents, right? So if you want to use our templates, you can. They're vetted by our attorney. We have multiple different types of waterfalls that you can use as well, which we have the templates for. And so it's really a one-stop shop. You can get all your legal docs, subscription agreements, and everything else done through our portal, including the Form C, which needs to be filed. So 506C and 506B, you need to file a Form D. With Reg CF, you'll file a Form C, and all those things, will help you with.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, last question I have regarding the technical parts of this too, because I'm a real estate investor and a capital raiser, and so I attract capital through 506B, 506C deals. Is there a potential way where you could have a property where you've got both a crowdfunded capital source and a sophisticated or an accredited capital source at the same time? Is that possible to do in any one deal?
Yes, you can do 506Cs and Reg CFs. You cannot do a 506B and a Reg CF.
Got it. Okay.
And the reason for that is because with 506B, you're not allowed to do any kind of advertising, and Reg CF, you are. So it's kind of like they counter each other out.
That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. Okay, very cool. Well, hey, man, so one thing that I got to ask you before we end up going over to the rapid round, which is the same 5 questions that we ask every one of our guests at the end of the show, I want to talk a little bit more about your love for real estate too. This is more of a tech-based platform. It's also a security-based platform. So if you wanted to, you could invest in companies, you could invest in Bitcoin mines, you could do individuals, tech, like anything, right? You could invest in through your platform. But let's talk just a little bit about why real estate appealed to you and why that became your first low-hanging fruit in this platform, so to speak.
First, I'll go back and I'll say, I'm going to admit today my sins. And my sins are that I was never necessarily, when I in the beginning, I used to say to myself, real estate is this thing which people attach a lot of emotion to, and therefore is difficult to really understand. And that was in my ignorance, right? And therefore I felt like, I wasn't sure about real estate that much, but that was I based a lot of my ignorance. It was like kind of later when I kind of fell into it. Basically, I owned this home in Colorado, and I went and bought another home because we moved, and I kept that home and I started renting it out. And that's when the whole thing became like my eyes opened to this thing that, wow, basically I have this home, I'm renting it out, and money just shows up in my bank account every single month. And I can raise the rent. Tenant leaves, I get a new tenant, higher rent amount, I got a raise. It's and it was a revelation to me. And I was like, you know what? I need to rethink about real estate. I bought homes and never sold them. I only sold one of my homes, and that was last year in Colorado. And that was because it just made sense financially to sell and buy more here in Connecticut at a lower price with a higher cap rate, etc. There were a few good deals which I had. But the realities are that real estate is a thing you can show up to and look at, and everyone always needs it, right? People need a roof over their head. It's like a product which there's no one who's going to say they don't need it, right? So it's a product people need. They value it. If you provide good home for people, you treat your tenants right, it's a great product, and it's relatively hands-off, and the money just flows into your bank account. So it just makes a lot of sense to me. Now, how I got built Invone as a marketplace for real estate was not to do with that necessarily. It was mainly because I had a problem myself, which was I was trying to buy another house in Connecticut, and buying that house, the landlord, who knew how much money I was making at my corporate job, because he saw that, because when I applied, he required it. So I'm trying to buy from him, and he had a certain price when we were negotiating the rent. And now the price went up by probably about $60,000. And this was 2019 when no one knew what was going to happen, with COVID and the whole housing market going crazy. I didn't want to overpay for this house. So I was looking to see whether other people would invest alongside me in my own private home, buy some of the equity and, partake in some of the upside. And I realized there were a few companies willing to do that, but where the price was just too high. So I thought if I create a marketplace where people can invest in equity in each other's equity, peer to peer, that would be something which would have solved my problem, and maybe it'll solve other people's problems too. So that's how I really kind of got into it. And then once I started realizing that, I realized, wow, this has the potential not to just solve people's problems, but to offer private investments into cash flowing assets to just anybody, and solve problems for the little guy. And I got very, very passionate about being able to solve the problem on both sides.
Yeah, I love this. I love this idea because you're able to combine two of those really early influences in your life, right? Which was being able to help the little guy, right? Like your family get into these private offerings that would have really helped your family out when they needed it. And there just wasn't a flow, right? And then also having this recent problem that you just had with real estate and getting your stuff out east and all of that, right? I love how this is just kind of like a natural, passionate result of these two things coming together and giving something incredible to the world. So thank you very much for doing that. That's awesome. Really love it.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. So in order to close this show out, because we could continue talking about this for probably another hour or two at least till the sun comes down here in Portugal, let's go ahead and head into the rapid round, which is the same 5 questions that we ask all of our guests. And then after that, I'll help you explain to the audience how we can find out more about you and your platform. Okay. So are you ready to go?
Let's go.
All right. Number 1, what book has had the biggest impact on you and why? And we hope that you don't say the Bible or the Purple Bible, because we get those every single time.
There's 2 books, which I would say. One is Siddhartha. I don't know if you've ever read Siddhartha.
I haven't, but it's I have a feeling I know what that's about.
That was a really, really eye-opening book for me. I'm Jewish, and that's like a more of a Buddhist book, or has a lot of Buddhist influence in it. But, the whole concept of being able to kind of like focus on the moment, really, really powerful to me. And so that Hermann Hesse is a great writer, and Siddhartha is a really fantastic book, really big influence on me. Another one was actually a book written by a medieval Jewish philosopher called The Guide to the Perplexed. I think they rival each other, although The Guide to the Perplexed I've read more of than Siddhartha, but it's a book by Maimonides, and it's got a huge amount of wisdom in it.
Awesome, man. I love that. I haven't heard of those 2 yet. Well, I've heard of a book similar to the first one that you mentioned on the Buddhist side. And then this Guide for the Perplexed is something I'm going to be adding to my Amazon cart right in about 5 minutes or so.
Yeah.
So
it's a bit tough going to read it though. It's a bit tough going. Good. It's a philosophy book. Go on.
I'm sure it's well worth it in its weight for sure. Number 2, if people wanted to emulate your success, what do you think is the first actionable thing they could do to follow in your footsteps?
That's a tough one because, when I think of my success, I don't think of it in terms of only money, right? I think actually money is very, very secondary, even 3rd or 4th down the line of success. I think the holistic success is really important, seeing the entire picture. I would say you need to find the things you're really passionate about and figure out your purpose and then follow that. And it's not about the money because you don't need to be super wealthy. You need to kind of have well-being in your life. And it doesn't necessarily coincide with making lots and lots of money. But it does coincide with following your passion and purpose.
Well said. Well said. Very well said. Couldn't have said it better myself. Number 3, what is one tool, process, or hack in the last 3 months that you've used to help save you time or effort?
There's a bunch, but I think the thing which has saved me more time and effort than anything else is actually having an assistant to take off a lot of the load. So it's not really a tool. But I think, someone who's trained in and knows what they're doing, and then I can trust and say, hey, you do this. We meet every morning. This is what you're going to do. The other thing, which is a hack, which is, I don't know if it's a hack or not, but I have a stand up with my team every single morning at 8:30 a.m. It's a check-in. So I know what they're doing. They know what the priorities are. And we use this tool called ClickUp, which is basically an asynchronous communication tool. So basically I can say, I put a story together, I tag them, put it in that column. They know what it is. They can kind of asynchronously get back to me, put it in the done column. I know it's done. That saves a lot of the check-ins and the handoffs.
Oh, yeah.
That's very, very helpful.
Yeah, I'm really big on this, Levi. Like I've got all these processes set up in Asana, which is like ClickUp, but probably less powerful than ClickUp is amazing. But we do this in Asana and we love it because, like, for instance, this podcast that we're recording right now is going to become a little box in a task for my assistant to help with. And any conversations that we have regarding that task sticks inside the task. It stays there. And so as it moves through status, all the comments and everything, it gets logged and changed. So every time they start working on it, I can see when it's worked and when that was moved over. Lots of really powerful things you can do with it if you need the data. So love that mention there with ClickUp and using sort of that along with your meetings to help get full alignment with your team. So
the meetings are really kind of part of the meetings are really kind of prioritization to make sure, okay, which.
Right. All right. Number 4, if the people that you know had to describe you in one word, what do you think that word would be?
That's a good one. I hope they would say he's a good guy.
Yeah, I think so. When I first met you, I would say that that's the impression that I got also. So yeah, it's because it's been really fun to see the whole journey go. I remember getting the FINRA thing was a huge thing to overcome. And we've been talking about it for a while. And, it's the speed of government. So I totally get it. All right. Number 5, what small thing do most people not know about you?
I don't mean because not anyone else's business, only because it's kind of part of your own self-development. So I would say, as a general rule, I care very much about becoming a better person, right? and there are things I do, and it's a hard slog, right?
Yeah, no, for sure. It takes time and energy, but all those things that are worthwhile usually take sacrifices. So I love that answer. All right, Levi, thank you so much for coming on and sharing all of your wisdom. But before we go on the show, why don't you please tell the listeners how we can find out more about your platform, you in general, and what you have going on right now to speak your truth?
Well, thank you very much. This has been so wonderful, and I really appreciate you having me on. So my email is Levi, Levi at Invown.com, INVOWN. It's made up of two words, invest and own. So Levi, Levi at Invown.com. Invown.com is the website. I used to be a writer, and I have a book. I'm best-selling author of a book called Jewish Wisdom for Business Success. You can check that out. It's available on Amazon if you want. I also do a podcast called the Wisdom for Business and Life podcast. You can check that out. And it's just me riffing it for half an hour, more or less, right? Occasionally have guests, but mostly it's just me riffing it. And then I do another one called the Invest and Own Real Estate Show, which I hope, Derek, you'll be a guest on. So that's basically all the forums I'm on. I'm not on YouTube yet, is operative term.
I would highly recommend it because there's a lot of things you can do to take the content and restructure it and send it out in different ways and package it. But anyway, that's a conversation for another day. But for now, Levi, I just want to say thank you for coming on the show because this is super powerful stuff. A lot of people don't even realize that you can raise money through crowdfunding as a capital raiser, but also as an investor to be able to invest money with such a small amount, right? And get yourself really diversified. So I'm really excited with the platform that you've built. And I think that we should start to talk about getting some of that going with some of our investments as well. So looking forward to continuing the conversation there too. And for you listeners out there that have listened to this point, I want to thank you guys so much for it. Really appreciate you. And please do not forget to like, comment, subscribe, engage with us, give us a comment, give us a thumbs up, just engage with us so that we can appease those algorithm gods. And as we do that, we can get more and more exposure to more people and bring on incredible guests like Levi on the show. So that being said, thank you, dear listener, and we will see you next week. Have a good one. Take care. This is Derek signing off.